And we'll be getting started in a moment. Thank you for joining. Just waiting for more people to join the Zoom. I see students trickling in. So thank you for joining on time. We'll be getting started in a few more moments. Let's see where we at. We'll have another minute and then we'll get started promptly at 12:05. So thank you for joining and thank you for your patience. Hey, I thought 12:05 would never come. I was getting anxious. I'm very excited. Welcome. Thank you for joining. This is our last online leadership development workshop with our alumni ambassadors. My name is Jermaine Clark, and I'm the Associate Director for Graduate Student Engagement, and I'm joined by other members of our team. I'll allow a brief moment for them to introduce themselves, starting Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura Badovnak. Thank you so much for joining us today.
And Annabelle Ohnbach.
Hi, Panthers. Annabelle Ombach, one of your graduate student engagement managers for our wonderful graduate student engagement team. Thank you for joining us today.
Okay. And Boomi, I know you can't talk, so it's okay. We are also joined by graduate assistant Boomi Patel. All right. So as you know, we're here to learn a little bit more about leading through change and uncertainty. As you can relate, I'm sure you can all relate. These are very uncertain times. And as you take steps through your leadership journey, we want to better equip you with the tools to make sure that you are able to navigate this space, no matter how uncertain they may be. Uh, Leading into our agenda, we'll do a bit of introductions from our panel of alumni ambassadors, and we'll talk about some types of change and how to lead with confidence, along with many other opportunities for you to learn from our alumni ambassadors. And then we'll have some question and answer at the end. So without any further ado, I think you all have waited long enough. I will have our alums introduce themselves and lead us right into the presentation. So we'll start with Amy.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm here. Can't introduce myself without my son, Teddy. Comes to work with me every day. So talk about being ready for change and anything that can happen. Life lessons. But yes, Amy Smith, I'm a practice manager at a pediatric office. You may hear some of that background noise during the session, but so it goes. I graduated from the Flex MBA program, and I'm looking forward to our session today. Over to you, Blake.
Hi, everyone. Blake Parrish. I'm the clubhouse manager at Cherokee Country Club in Knoxville, Tennessee. I graduated from the Masters in Global Hospitality Management program, the class of 2020 during COVID. Happy to be here today. Kind of ran up out of breath because we had an event crashing downstairs. So again, being ready for change. We had our whole AV system went out as everybody was walking in the room. So a little bit of a scramble, but I made it.
Thank you for making it, Blake, as well as you, Amy. Ashley?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Cyrus. I work for Syneos Health, which is a biopharmaceutical clinical research company. I am a contracts and grants manager there, and I graduated in 2020 during the pandemic, like with Blake. So we know a lot about change and uncertainty. And my program was the Master of Science in Healthcare Administration.
Awesome. And I'll turn it over to you all.
Okay, so pretty much, even just getting started with this entire idea of leading with change and uncertainty, we realized it was very broad topic because there's so many different angles that you can have change and uncertainty in your life. There could be outside factors, inside factors, all different types of things. So what we kind of thought was, let's kind of give everyone different like ideas of what it would look like, and then also kind of show you guys how can we solve these things. So we wanted to first kind of walk through what kind of external change would probably look like for you, or kind of some type of uncertainty. It could be organizational things. Maybe your job is acquiring a company, they're buying a company, that could create some kind of change. Industry changes can change. Economic shifts is something that I personally took part in. We had the pandemic, so I experienced a change, a shift. A big thing we always talk about at GSU is gig economy. That was a thing that actually took place as like an outside change. A lot of people started picking up jobs and being independent contractors, and that could be something that you might have to partake in if there is a change. There can be changes regarding kind of society, like DEI came about with the government. They wanted to bring DEI in, and then now they had said they want to take it back. So that's an example of a change. Organizational can have your organization can have financial changes. So I know these are things that probably haven't impacted you yet if you aren't actually working with a company, but these are just different examples of things that can impact you or your company on the external outside.
All right, so outside of things that within your organization can come from external influences, there's a lot of things within your company that can really kind of upset the apple cart. One of the biggest ones is leadership changes. So whether that be from your boss, last year, or 2 years ago, my boss ended up getting fired. It was kind of a scandalous situation at work, and so that was a big scenario where we had to kind of set everybody straight. And what they do is they look for the next leader or the leader of the company to kind of set the tone. So they're looking how you handle your emotions, they're looking for how you react, what you say. And when you make a major leadership change, when you move somebody else in or take somebody else out, everybody needs to understand that there's a period that you would call maybe forming, storming, and performing. I can't remember who it was that came up with this theory, but forming is that when everybody kind of starts a new team, you have a major leadership change. Everybody kind of gets along great, right? They're excited, they want to work together, they've got kind of a similar mission. They're really kind of feeling each other out. And then when storming happens is when people start to really kind of lay their, I guess, take claims of their responsibility. Hey, this is something I'm passionate about. This is something I'm passionate about. And everybody can kind of bicker a little bit and figure out how each other work. They don't really understand the dynamic in the office. And then performing is when people really start to kind of get cohesive together. You get over some of the minor territorial boundaries, and the team really develops. So when you get into a position where you're having to lead through a leadership change, be cognizant of the fact that there's different stages to it, and you don't necessarily have to react to every single one of them. You can kind of let them play out. One of the major things too is just being flexible, allowing everybody to come to you with concerns. Again, you don't have to react to every single thing. And allow the team, maybe one person excelled at one thing and we brought someone else in who's better at it. Let something go, right? Let somebody else take something new on, and make sure you have conversations with each person that's on your team so they understand what the next, what the next person may need to try to create that cohesive structure. Team changes can be maybe people that are underneath you. Again, that same introductory period applies. But when you're leading them, you need to really understand what's the motivations for everybody, right? Some people are motivated by education. Some people like the fancy title. Some people are financially motivated. Some people are work-life balance. Everybody's got different motivations. So understanding what makes people tick and kind of getting inside their heads can really help get the team dynamic working when you make a big shift within them. And then outside of those two, you can have a company crisis, right? So this could be, like I mentioned, a dramatic scenario at work. It kind of stirs up all the office gossip, right? It could be something public. We're a private country club, so if we had something major go on within the club, something internal to the club might be a scandal within the membership, right? Something external might be if there's an active shooter or something like that, or a suicide or something really dramatic. You've got to deal with that. And again, not only is your staff looking at you for how you're going to react to those things and for the emotional leadership there, but now you've got the media looking at you, you've got the stakeholders, your board of directors, you got the membership. So all eyes are on you as the leader to be able to help motivate everybody through there. And especially in a crisis situation, the first thing to do is don't draw any conclusions, right? You'll notice that companies that have professional PR firms that handle crisis will usually say, hey, we understand what happened. You respond to it quickly, but you don't share a lot of details. We have empathy for whoever was impacted, and we're going to follow the facts and do an investigation and figure out everything we can, and then let them know when you're going to update them on things. So giving that transparency without oversharing things that you may not know the information on is really critical. But the most important piece is just keeping that calm, cool head, because your staff, if you are at 900 degrees and bouncing off the walls and really panicked about a big situation like that, chances are your staff are going to be. So keeping your mental state calm really is the key here. Next slide.
Yeah, Blake, the fact that you ran over to this session from a crisis and you haven't even broken a sweat tells us that you've truly embraced those
Wasn't
different
quite
traits.
as bad as a shooting or something. It was audio video.
But it was unexpected, yes.
Yeah.
So I want to take a moment and talk about, if you imagine sort of these concentric circles of these types of change, right? Ashley started us out here with external. Blake talked about some internal changes. I want to embrace the center of that circle with personal change. There's sort of four main pillars I'd like to sort of structure this conversation around, and this is going to involve some interaction with y'all. So look at the bottom of your screen and find that chat feature for me, please. And I'm going to ask for your contributions here as we get going. Personal change can be considered across sort of four different elements. There's transformational change, developmental change, lifestyle change, and behavioral change. These are all just different ways that we can evolve and change. Sure, there's others, but I felt like these ones kind of set the tone and had a nice span of options. Transformational change is deep and lasting. It can be identity altering. I know for me personally, a transformational change that I went through was a career change. I was a middle and high school math teacher for 10 years, lived all around the world and back again. And it was who I am, an educator. And now I'm a practice manager at a pediatric office. So life happens, there will always be parts of me. I'll still always have a goober side, and I'm still, around some adolescence, but the dedication of my life to my career has changed. That's a big deal. I'm curious if any of you have any ideas that you can pop in the chat for what you may consider a transformational change, either for you or in general. I'll give you a moment. Chime in there. Teddy's going to be your background music while you do that. But think through, what's a transformational change, something identity altering that someone might encounter in their life, in their career? Pop those in the chat. Let's see. Chat. Let's see. Job loss. Yeah. Death of family. Definitely significant. Another common one, addiction recovery, right? These are things that change the core elements of your identity, and it's truly transformative, right? Another aspect would be developmental change. This is a change that is more incremental. Oftentimes it's planned. I know for me personally, it was my MBA. I anticipated a career change. Yeah, unexpectedly becoming a caregiver is a great transformational change, shifts everything. When I went for my MBA, it was planned, right? It was a little sooner than I thought. I applied and I ended up starting 6 months earlier than I had anticipated. but I'm super thankful for that. And it really kicked me off for my transformational change of my career change. What other developmental changes have any of you encountered or can you think of? I know for us, sure, our graduate degrees. What else might be considered a developmental change? Planned, incremental. Yeah, that's a great point, Robbie. It's a total shift. Promotions, great. Promotions could be a great developmental change. You anticipate it. You may even have a performance improvement plan in place, something like that, or a leadership development plan if you have a larger organization that supports that explicitly. These are great examples of developmental changes that you can anticipate, plan for, and make those incremental adjustments for. All educational opportunities, right? Certificates, yes, we all LinkedIn Learning. Let's do the thing, right? Internships, all that jazz. Teddy's so proud of you. Yes. Okay. Another one is lifestyle change. Hi. For example, having a tiny person. Everything changes, right? That changes your habits or your circumstances. And it's prompted by an external event, often like, a new person coming into your life, whether you created them or otherwise. But what other examples might we have for lifestyle change? Because we can't ignore that. It's going to impact your professional career. Let's see. Starting a family, marriage, moving, absolutely. Yeah. Changing as a caregiver. It's a big shift. Buying a home. Yeah. Life changes when you're not just hopping out the apartment. You have a home. You have to manage all that. You can't just hit the landlord up to fix everything. Health issues for sure. No coffee is indeed a lifestyle change. Bless you. And may the odds be ever in your favor. Diet and exercise, 100%. Great examples. The last pillar that I want to talk about is behavioral change, right? This is a change in habits or actions. Could be spurred by an intervention in extreme cases, or it could be more internally managed. My example for me was saving a few bucks and some time in the morning and doing coffee at home instead of a drive-through, and trying to really embrace that change is a big behavioral change for me, because I can tell you, with 2 kids, sometimes the drive-through is just easier, but trying to commit, trying to maintain that change. What other ideas do people have for behavioral change? Right? Procrastination, yes. That could be either a lifestyle change or a behavioral change. What other behavioral changes have maybe you embraced or that you've seen others encounter? Change in habits or actions, potentially spurred by an intervention. Ooh, a meditation practice. Nice. Changing your routine of your day to make sure you have time for maintaining your mental health. Very nice. See if we can get one more. Yeah, cooking more at home. Healthier options, time together as a family. Excellent. So this gives you some ideas of the most immediate changes that you might feel, right? But that doesn't change the impact of any of those outer circles of internal change and external change. Go ahead. Thanks, Jermaine. Blake and I want to kind of talk about now, as we think about this sort of overview of this presentation before we get to actions, a crash course in change management. Anyone who's going into a graduate degree in business, you're going to learn about change management and what that means. And it's organizational change. It can be applied to personal change. But when we think about leading through change, these are some key elements of change management, which PS, you could do a dissertation on this topic. So forgive us, this is a crash course. But these are some of the key elements that we want to embrace. And Blake and I are going to go through these and then infuse with some examples. I'll kick us off. And when you think about change management, you have to understand what strategic goals are, whether it's for your team, for your organization, depending on the size and scale of the type of group that you're working with. I'm at an office with 5 employees, right? So anything we do is an organizational goal. I used to work at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, very large organization, right? I guess technically medium size. But there, you can't really fly solo. You got to incorporate other strategic minds of broader goals that for the whole organization when you anticipate change within your own team. I don't know if you have anything else you want to chime in there, Blake.
Yeah, I always laugh when you kind of look up change management because there's about 1,000 different perspectives on it, and one of my favorite ones is one says define the change, plan the change, do the change, review the change, and that's about as worthless as it gets. I think you can't really actually change something without doing that. You hit on one of the pieces I was going to talk about, which is making sure that before you do anything within your organization, maybe you're rolling out a new initiative, you are going to do a leadership change, something like that. You got to think about all the stakeholders. You got to think about what's at stake for them, and it can be both thinking about what, how it impacts them maybe financially or their workload and some of the tangible things, but then think about their emotions, right? Like what are their goals? What are they passionate about? And how does this impact them, right? And think about different personalities within your team and give a lot of those things thought before you actually push through anything. I'd strongly encourage anybody that's got a new initiative that they need to lead to really think about all of their major folks on their team and how it impacts them. And I know that one of the things that can really kind of get under people's skin is if something gets rolled out and handed to them, and they're a large stakeholder and they never had became a part of the iterative process, right? Like, so when you're going to do something, you're going to roll it out, and maybe you're rolling it out top down. You don't necessarily have to make it feel top down, right? Like you can go to each person and say, hey, this is coming along the line. I wanted to see what you thought about it. Hey, here's something we're thinking about doing. Wanted to know how you thought it would impact your team, right? And get all that feedback. And even if you can't implement pieces of it, people feel heard, they feel a part of the process, and they don't feel blindsided when it comes down. I'll give you one example. When I was at Ansley Golf Club, they rolled out their values, and I was their food and beverage director there. I'm a member of the senior executive team, and when we rolled out these values, it was the first time I had ever heard of it. And so I think it was just literally the HR director and the GM sat in their office and kind of came up with it. But it took years for people to buy in, and most people thought it was cheesy and weren't bought in early on because no one had any input on it whatsoever. So we were told what it's kind of hard for somebody to tell you what your values were when you've been there for a while, right? Like, so if you've just given people a process for being able to provide input, they typically are going to be a lot easier to get on board with whatever you're trying to implement. I'll give you another example. I worked at a club called Wind River, and it was a developer club, and this may be a situation where a lot of you find yourself in once you finish your graduate degrees. I took my first kind of real management job at this club, and I'd never even heard of a private club. I didn't know what they were, right? You've heard of country clubs. I didn't understand the business. And when I walked in the door, it was this $2 million home. And the owner said, hey, we're going to put a kitchen in the garage. We're going to tear out all the furniture. We're going to turn this into a restaurant. It'll be open in 6 weeks. I need you to run the restaurant. And that was a pretty big objective that got handed to me, and I didn't have a ton of experience with it. So I had to hire an entire team, and a lot of it I was doing on that one was just fake it till you make it. I had some experience in the restaurant business. I had never opened a brand new business before, so a lot of it I had to just start calling people that I knew that had been in similar roles and asking them for advice. And my team was looking to me like I was supposed to know everything, and most of the time I was just stealing the information from somebody who I could call on as a mentor. Throughout that operation, we ended up opening 5 food and beverage operations in 2.5 years. We opened a small hotel, we opened an events department, we opened a casual thing. And throughout each of those, I got better and better and better at being able to create a team, create a project, and then get everybody's buy-in. What I learned along the way was that if each person is involved in the next step, and everybody is sold the vision early on, hey, this is where we can be, this is why we're doing it, people tend to get on board. At first, we didn't really know what the vision was there, but once we'd gotten a couple of these open and everybody kind of understood the process, and everybody was bought into kind of this moving train, it got easier and easier and easier. So think about everybody that's on your team, think about how it impacts them, and make sure that they're a part of the process. Whether they actually get to contribute or not, just knowing that their voice is heard can make a big difference.
just to build off of that, like I'm thinking about my Children's Healthcare of Atlanta project. I was on the team that helped train everyone moving into the brand new hospital. I don't know if anyone has seen that, Arthur M. Blank Hospital at North Druid Hills in 85, but it was nearly 10,000 employees that we trained. So
Wow.
yeah. So there's different scopes of change. And where I'm going with that, I want to touch on that, the KPI bit and the project scope bit, because for a lot of us, depending on the change, if we are a mid-level leader, you're a manager of a team, right? Not thinking CEO, you're kind of caught in the middle, right? In some of these changes. And what that means is you need to be really sensitive to the impact on your team, or in my case, we were the liaisons, right? We were the advocates for every department and the change happening to their departments and ensuring that they had the tools that they needed to grow. Now, what that meant is Children's Healthcare of Atlanta had very explicit KPIs set for this project, right? It's been planned for years. But that didn't mean that when I was working with our radiology team, or when I was working with the ED department and their space was growing tenfold, right? They didn't care about those big KPIs. They wanted to feel confident for patient care. They wanted to make sure that they had the resources that they needed. They wanted to make sure that they understood their new equipment, right? So the goals changed. So that scope, when you're a mid-level leader, sometimes you do need to consider both how you support below and that you meet your expectations higher up. Teddy agrees. So just something to consider.
Yeah, it's typically harder in mid-management because you have both of those dynamics, right? It always feels easier when you're up top, but in mid-level management, you have two competing sets of stakeholders a lot of times. You maybe didn't have a huge part of the process. You didn't get to define the direction, especially in a 10,000, person organization. Chances are mid-level managers didn't have any input on how it was getting rolled out, but you're given standards, you're given procedures, and you've got to buy in and you got to show that you're bought in, even if you're not, and give the right example for everybody else. So it's a tough position. It's hard at the top too, because in a mid-level manager job, if it doesn't roll out right, you did everything by the book and the way you were supposed to, you got a little CYA, you're good. But at the top level, you're responsible whether it works or not, so there's different stressors depending on which part of that organization you're in. All right, so one of the things we kind of recommend is develop your personal style. You can call it ethos. Everybody's got their way that they react to things, and they've got the way that they handle different situations. Some folks are planners. Some folks are very decisive in nature. When something happens, they tend to know what to do. They know how to react right away, or at least make it seem like they do. And that can shift over time. But give yourself the space to really have the self-awareness to think about how you handle things, and develop your style, and don't be afraid to communicate your style to other people, right? So non-reactionary is something that I try to practice, and the reason I try to practice it is because it's something I'm not good at. I tend to be the kind of person that has an answer pretty quickly. I can react to stuff pretty fast. But sometimes just because I reacted fast doesn't necessarily mean that it was the right answer, right? So if you have the ability to do it, considering the level of crisis that it may be, give yourself time to think about something. It's okay to tell somebody. It's okay to tell your staff that look up to you, hey, you know what? This is going to be a big decision. I need to give it some time. Let me marinate on this a little bit and get back with you. I want to make sure that we all make the right call, right? And people respect that. You don't always have to have the right answer at the exact second somebody needs you. So give yourself some space. Power of the pause is that when somebody says something to you, or somebody brings something to you, I'll give you a good example. I had somebody come to me with a 5-alarm fire because some of our housemen that are supposed to be setting up all of our events didn't check on the men's locker room on Sunday, so the locker room was a mess, and housekeeper almost quit over it, right? Is that person walking out the door right now? Nope. Do I have a few minutes to think about the right way to approach this person, to approach that person? Hey, you know what? Until you're fired up right now, let's take a few minutes. Why don't you come back and we'll chat in about 10, 15 minutes, okay? And that was a situation literally this morning where I just said, hey, let's sit and talk here in a few minutes when you got a few chance to sit and think about it for a couple seconds. We came back 15 minutes later. It was a more relaxed, easy situation that we worked through, came up with a couple of solutions, and now we'll go implement them for our teams, right? Between accountability and changing some of our systems. So power of the pause is important, and you just give a few minutes to let your emotions run the gamut. Sometimes you can have a really good outcome. So patience equals wisdom. A lot of times people will, let's say you've got a KPI for a change you want to implement. We expect to see, sales in this outlet increase by this much. So we put a couple of processes in place, right? I can't look at 2 weeks of sales data and tell you if that worked or not, right? And a lot of times you've got to let things really work. You've got to let people buy into stuff. You've got to let, processes play out. You've got to let the pieces really start rolling. Sometimes it takes momentum for things to really work out. We can do a new marketing campaign, and it can take a minute before it actually starts to have an effect. Listen more and talk less. So again, this is kind of part of that getting buy-in from stakeholders. Just communicate with people, ask them how they feel, listen, and then just take it. You don't have to react to it. Say, hey, thanks for sharing that with me. I'll get back with you. Young leaders especially have a tendency to fix immediately. They want to have the answers. They're excited to be a problem solver. But sometimes it's best to have a core group of people, either peers of yours in the industry or a mentor that you call on and say, hey, I'm in this difficult situation. Have you seen this before? What do you think about it, right? And then gather the facts amongst everybody on the team. Also being aware of your innate tendencies, the things you tend to do, and the things that you need to work on and you're constantly working on, and then understanding your bias, right? I tend to have a bias towards the food and beverage staff versus my maintenance team because I come from a food and beverage background. I get their line of work. I may not understand a plumber's background and his perspective. So I've got to realize that, take a step back and go, hey, how does this person feel, and what background are they coming from that might change how they view things. Also, don't take it home with you. Now, you can take a problem home with you to think about, but don't take the emotions home. If you've got Teddy at home, you can't come home pissed off about a patient that didn't pay their bill, or and just neglect him, right? Like you got to make time for your family. You got to make time for yourself. You got to do the things that are fun to help reset your clock so you can come in and do the right thing. It's okay to take a problem home and think about it and give it thought, but don't take the emotions home, because it just can wear out your family or make things worse at home. And we kind of talked about it a couple of times. Sometimes the best insight, my personal thing I love to do is I go for a run. Sometimes I'm not even thinking about the problem that I've got at work, but in the middle of a run, I'll go, oh my gosh, I know how to address that person now, or I know how to solve this thing. It just comes to me, right? So figure out what your thing is that allows solutions to kind of form.
So I want to touch base on, I know that a lot of people are different places in their journey. Some people aren't actually in their career yet, so they're not too familiar on what it would be like to be a leader yet, or how to lead through anything. So I did want to touch base on what it would be like as a student, how you can work with change and uncertainty. And this is also things that you can carry into being a leader and change and uncertainty. So it's always good to have like a plan set for yourself, because things will actually form itself better, and you can actually predict areas where you might want to change or do different things. So having a goal set is a good thing. I wanted to give an example of myself. I remember when I was preparing to enter the job force, I didn't know what parts of my resume did I need to focus on to make sure I was putting myself in the right place. So I remember I planned out 2 separate resumes. I had a clinical resume that was more geared to me doing like my science part of my degree, but the degree and the program was business, Robinson Business School. So there was a huge administrative and like a business C-suite side of what I could be doing. And whenever I would make my resume, I realized I had like science stuff, and then I've also had evidence of me doing like clerical and leadership work, like things that could show that I can lead. Whereas in the science things, which show that I can work like within the ER. I can work within the insurance office, or, you know, like I can show those things, but I couldn't tell, like, will I be a clinical person or a non-clinical person? So I feel like being able to prepare myself to have two separate resumes, because that could show that I'm going to, honestly, two possible career paths, you know, two different journeys, as well as while I'm on those journeys, I could see if I also want to switch. Maybe I'm on the clinical path. I see how overwhelming it is, and I want to veer off to the non-clinical side. I still have that other second set of, you know, skills. I have, you know, all those things. So I feel like being prepared will help you, because it is on you. You're not certain on where you're going to be, what you're going to do. You don't know who's going to offer you a job. I do remember in the beginning, I was just hungry. I was like, I just want a job. I just want to work. So that way I can see and feel myself out from there. So I just feel like it'll increase your confidence and your readiness, having multiple, I would say, resumes that are tailored to your skills. And also, it made my resume really long every time I made it one resume. So it made it nice and like straight to the point when I had two separate ones. And I was giving the who are they again? The recruiter is exactly like what they're looking for. So I felt like that helped preparing. Then it's a part of like that proactive behavior. But it's also really important because it's helping you stay ahead, instead of the change just coming to hit you. If you are staying in the know, you can see what's coming ahead. I know they probably talked about AI for a while, and all in different areas before people actually saw it starting to trickle its way into their departments, you know, and into different things on their teams. So a way to try to stay ahead, is to try to attend events and webinars, things like this. Like, we are all in our industries already, so I'm pretty sure Blake has like the latest know of what's happening in his industry before we would all, because we won't work there. You know, same for me and Amy. Whatever we know in healthcare, we'll probably know before. And so attending these things, you'll catch things, you'll hear things, you'll she can, just how she told us that they were building stuff, now you know of new opportunities possibly at, you know. So I just feel like it's important as a student to continue to be a part of these events and try to find out what's going on, so that way you can attack any kind of change or uncertainty that could possibly happen in your industry or where you want to go. If something's emerging, you want to be on top of it first, get a certification really quickly so you can apply. You know, these are ways to kind of be ahead of those possible things. And I always say that there can't be a change until you change your mind. So anything you ever want to do in life, if you want to create a change or, you know, do something, it always starts in the mind first. And so I really feel like we have to build that. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to be an adaptable person. I hear the word adaptable all the time as well, or, you know, be adaptable. It's like, what do you even mean by that? And so, like, I have a good example of this guy at my job, like when I first got started, um, like, like what being adaptable is, right? Like, they came to us and they told us, hey, we have some work. It was administrative work, like tedious tasks that wasn't really related to our real role, which was budgets and contracts. So it was like below our work, but they said they desperately needed a small team of people to knock out this admin work. So this is something that's like being thrown in our work world that we're gonna have to kind of just adapt with. And there's this guy on the team who was not happy with it. He was complaining about it to the team. He's just like, this is not in my job description. Like, he's saying all this like smart stuff, right? Somehow the word got back that he was not happy with this small change, this small little thing. He wasn't being adaptable to this little project that they gave us, and that guy got fired. I couldn't believe it. Well, he actually got moved to a completely different team. But in my head, it was like, he kind of got fired. Is that what y'all trying to say? But it was because he wasn't being adaptable. He wasn't. There's things that are gonna come about. Mind you guys, the project probably took a month of us kind of working together to get it knocked out. But it spoke volumes to the leaders. Like, wow, they went and they did some janitor work. They did some things that were below their level for the moment to help us knock something out. But we showed that we were adaptable, while he showed he just he couldn't be flexible. So those are the small things that might come about, but you just got to show, like when Amy's team, when they were like, hey, you guys all need to get trained because new things are coming. If people were sitting there complaining, and those are not flexible, adaptable people. And I'm going to say that things happen a lot. So you're going to have to learn how to develop that mindset. And so the first thing it says is try to see changes as an opportunity, not a threat. That guy made a big mistake by seeing that as a threat, because he was saying it was janitor work. Like when I made that statement, it was him who said that. He's just like, this is janitor work. Like, this is not in my descriptions. I'm getting paid for it, and it's taking up my time. He didn't think that those words were going to get back to leadership. And so you have to start taking these little small things and, finding a way to build on it, because it's just constantly evolving world. And you just got to be resilient and try to, how do I say it? Understand yourself, understand your strengths and your weaknesses. So that way, when it is time, when things do happen, where you'll be able to thrive, where you'll be able to speak up and let leadership know where you see yourself being able to do better, or, might need some more support, being vocal. So it's just all starting with, working within yourself, and then hopefully it starts to flow outwards.
So, first off, I want to say thank you to our alums, our alumni ambassadors. I say this every session, but it's true. Our alumni put so much time and effort, their own time. They volunteer their time to really share some of their experiences and share the things that they believe will help you succeed. Because again, they've been in your very same seats, whether it was 2020, 2022, not that long ago, in a very uncertain time, probably the most uncertain time. So I do appreciate Blake, Amy, and Ashley taking the time to really share this with our students, not only the ones on the call, but the ones that will see this when we post it on YouTube as well. I can't see the chat just yet, but I'm going to open while you think of question. Okay, we do have a question. Or someone asked if it's okay to connect in LinkedIn. So if you want to put your information for LinkedIn in the chat, that'll be great. And that's what this is about as well. Again, our ambassadors do volunteer time, but they also want to pour back into our students as well. So as you all think of more questions, I'm just going to do a quick plug and we'll come back to questions. So next Tuesday, in the Buckhead Center, this will actually be the only in-person in-person online. This will be the only in-person alumni networking event that's put together by our team and the alumni ambassadors for this semester. So take advantage of it. They'll be at the Buckhead Center. We'll have Michelle, Latrinda, Jack, and Kira. So we'll love to see you there on the 6th floor lounge. Typically 4 o'clock is right before classes. So if you can pop in, spend some time, network, you never know what that can lead to. Introduce yourselves and connect with our ambassadors at our alumni networking roundtable. We try to do this once a semester, and we have brought it in person for you all. So take some time. If you can scan that QR code, you can register today. And we'll go back to questions, and I'll stop sharing. So if anyone has any questions, they could come off mute and ask our ambassadors. And I don't see anything in the chat just yet. So if someone, we're sharing our LinkedIn's. Okay, good. I did have a question. And this is for anyone. I know there was talks, Ashley, you mentioned about being proactive in, how you react to change, but how do you anticipate as a leader when change is coming? And ultimately, what are the signs that you might look for, or any of our ambassadors, what are signs that you may look for? I know the world, it probably dictates some of that, but what are some other ways that you learn to anticipate change?
I'd love to hop in here. So the practice where I work, we're in East Point, Georgia. We are almost 90% Medicaid patients. And so one of the big changes, it basically a big part of planning for change is preparing for things that may not happen and trying to anticipate. So leading for change is ideally not a reaction and rather a preparation, right? And it should begin in theory before change even happens, right? Thinking back to the massive CHOA project, that was years in the making, right? Before they even broke ground, they had been planning for 15 years and getting everything aligned. Now, sometimes you're not the one spurring that. So when we go back to those different types of change, right, you can't control a lot of stuff. I can't control the current administration, but we are sitting here and we are having to deal with the consequences of decisions that are being made by people who will never live the lives of the people that they're changing. So when we think about that, what we're trying to think about as an organization is education, right? And trying to keep ourselves appraised as best we can, so that we can best support our patients, working with our billing team, right? Making sure that we are aware of any changes that are formally, officially happening. On the back end, we're also trying to think, okay, well, what can we control? And we're currently in the process of signing up and creating a nonprofit to run parallel to our business so that we can hopefully pursue funding, right? And we can try to build in a buffer for any of our patients who may lose their benefits. So there are elements, it's a balancing act, right? Part of it is what you're told. So back to that sort of middle management, in a sense, even though I'm the top management here, I can't control what the government decides, but whatever they hand down to me, I can make the best of, and I can try to work around and work with to best support our patients and their families, right? We're overflowing. We haven't taken new patients in months because we don't have the bandwidth, which breaks our hearts, right? So we're double booked most days. So we're doing everything that we possibly can to offer the care, because that's all that we can do, right? We can't open a new office. We can't just poof, make a new pediatrician down the street. But what we can do is make sure that whatever supports we have, we are putting in place. We are educating our staff. We have red cards in our office for any of our undocumented families, right? So that we are prepared. Our staff understands, we've educated them on how to handle any of those encounters. So, I think that it's a very complicated thing depending on the type of change at hand, but I think the best bet is do whatever you can to stay ahead of it, right? When the election happened, we started making plans in anticipation of what could happen. That's not always an option, but that's my example.
Absolutely. And before anyone goes, I mean, what I'm hearing is understanding current events as well. Is just, I mean, I didn't understand it growing up. It took about till my freshman year of college to, when I'm studying business for professors and faculty, other faculty members, to say, okay, make sure you're reading the Wall Street Journal, make sure you're paying attention to what's going on in the news. And I never understood it because at that age, you really just focus on what's now, and the future is not really your mindset at that particular point. At least it wasn't very early on for me. Anyone else want to tackle that? Oh, yes, Ashley.
We're like, our company is data driven, like, of course, because we are a biopharmaceutical company. So everything is like looking up data, and we're creating data constantly. So I feel like that's how we would be able to be proactive. We look at what happened in the past to be able to try to manage what's going to happen in the future. We look at like things like, I work in the financials department, so a lot of times we'll have to look at how past inflation spikes have impacted the company and how we had to adjust, because we give away millions of dollars all the time. And so we have to make sure that are in the right place. Things are within fair market value. Like, we have to stay in the know times, understanding, like, actually paying attention, like what's going on when we're having the Fed rate cuts and stuff like that. Because it's like it trickles down to the financial department, and knowing what more can we take on now in regards of money, or what less, what can we do, and so that it puts strains on certain departments and things like that. So it's almost like we have to pay attention to the data and the information to be able to predict. And then it hits on what Amy said. That's how we prepare different angles to take place. And we've already built in on these areas, and maybe we haven't gone that path yet, but it's already drawn out if we do have to. And those are also based on previous data as well. So I feel like that's how my company stays proactive. They literally utilize lots of like financial models and like forecast. They use lots of predictive models, like lots of math and science and statistics to be able to gauge how can we handle these things. And I'm gonna be honest, companies really care about money. So that's really what's driving most of the changes. So if that's what matters to them, if they can find a way to make more money.
Right. Absolutely. And Blake, your industry is I mean, a lot of industries are unpredictable, but I would say hospitality, from what I understand about it, is so unpredictable.
I mean,
So
it's
how do
wild.
you, I'm sorry?
It's wildly unpredictable.
Yeah.
Day in and day out. Well, I was gonna. That's why like I did the slide on personal ethos, right? There's not, my business is such a people business. It's reacting to personalities. It's all emotions and personalities. Our board of directors every 2 years, rotates. About a third of it rotates every year. But every 2 years we get a new board president, right? And whenever you have a new board of directors president, they come in with a whole new agenda, right? Everybody's got a new boss every 2 years. And so that changes a lot. And so everything that you thought you were working on in one direction, you can totally get shifted in a different direction based on the whims of a different person. And, a lot of times boards are, especially volunteer boards are, they're, in healthcare, right? You might have a board of directors, it might be a trustee, but they're not a doctor, right? They're not necessarily a practice manager. They may not know the industry. Ours that don't, they're lawyers, accountants, things like that. So you go back to your core principles, right? Like how you react to these situations, how you conduct yourself in those kind of scenarios. The situation I was going to throw out that I think most people would talk about, surprised we haven't hit on yet is like COVID, right? Like every single business that we've all worked in got, during COVID got completely upended, and there's no data on it. There's no experience on it. Nobody was like, oh yeah, I remember the last pandemic, right? Like no one had any experience on how to deal with that. So what do you fall back on, right? You fall back on how you personally adapt to situations, how you personally handle situations, and it just falls back on core leadership. It falls back on how your staff looking at you and how you react to situations. So you can do a lot of contingency planning, and that's what we will typically do in situations when, weather can be a big one for us. We'll have a major golf tournament, hundreds of people here, and weather is completely outside of our control. And so we'll sit down and look at the forecast every couple hours and contingency plan, and what happens, and we just got to get our staff in a mindset of, we had a Oktoberfest, a Harvest Fest thing on Sunday, and it got rain dumped on us, and I had to get 100-something staff to immediately move the whole thing indoors, 30 minutes before, 600 people showed up. So be cool, be calm, be collected, and just fall back on core leadership principles.
Awesome. Awesome. I really appreciate the insights again from our alumni. Thank you to the students that have signed on. Again, this will be available on YouTube at the end of the semester, along with our other online sessions. The in-person session won't be available on YouTube, so make sure you're there in person. But again, truly thankful for all of our alumni ambassadors' time and their volunteer efforts and their willingness to give back to Robinson and our students. Thank you all again. Great to see my veteran alumni ambassadors. We'll be connecting soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.